Well, I am delighted. We've already seen how the universe has kind of orchestrated some of this summit for us. A number of us have had things happen in our lives that took us in different directions. Uh, whether we, in my case, my son having a, let's just call it a near death experience, uh, and being in the ICU and so forth. He's honestly medically in a much better place, but he's still struggling emotionally. And just as Maureen shared just a moment ago, and Olivia, I think everybody here has had some kind of something go on in our lives recently that has shaken us up a little bit. But one of those things that I am grateful for is sometimes when those shakeups happen, is that some really cool things happen. I originally had a Heather Pardon on the schedule for today, and she had a few things happen in her life, such that she wasn't able to be here today. And I reached out on in Heather Vickery's Facebook group, which is all about being brave, which I think we can all appreciate here, right? Uh, and Heather, I've just been thrilled to be in Heather's orbit and to witness her bravery and to hear her story and know a little bit more about her. So when we made the Heather swap from Heather Pardon to Heather Vickery, while I was sad that Heather Pardon isn't part of our summit this weekend, I am delighted, beyond delighted, to have Heather Vickery and her bravery and all the wonder and amazing things that she brings to the stage. And I'm noticing just now in the background the words "be brave." So as we learn to express our heart song, as we learn to reveal who we are, I think Heather Vickery will be an amazing guide for us to help us to step into what could be and how to be brave. And as I told her when she told me the title of her presentation, I probably wouldn't pronounce it the way that she would, but I will say that
I'll do my best.
F fearless, why being brave is trumps, and I'm totally ad-libbing here a little bit, but why being fearless, why being brave is better than being fearless.
Literally on my shirt.
Right on. So let us all welcome Heather Vickery.
Thanks, Steve. So I'm so delighted to be here with you all. I'm really glad that it worked out. Glad that Steve posted about it. It was kind of even a roundabout way. I think the prompt, it's in my Brave on Purpose group. I invite you all to come and hang out. But the prompt was like, how are you making brave choices today? Like, what are your brave choices today? And Steve's like, I'm bravely trying to find a new speaker. And I was like, well, can I help? And he said, well, if you mean, can you speak at my conference? That would help. I said, sure. So I appreciate that. And because this all happened really very rapidly and I'm in the middle of a workshop, I don't have slides for you today. I do have a really cool slide deck, but we're just going to talk today, which is what Steve asked me to do. And I'm pretty good at that. I host a podcast called The Brave Files, and I've done a lot of keynote speaking. So we should be able to have a good time together. And let me tell you a little bit about who I am. If you haven't already clicked, I mean, there's a lot of speakers in this summit. So my guess is you haven't done all your homework on all of them, because who's got that kind of time, right? But I'm really, really glad that you're here with me today. Brave is my business. It's right there. It's everywhere. It's branded everywhere. In fact, there are particular brand colors that I use that when my youngest daughter sees them, she goes, oh, mama, look, those are Brave colors, right? Like we do Brave big time. in my house, in my business, and in my world. So I am a success and leadership coach with over 24 years as an entrepreneur. And I'm a single mom of 4 girls. I've written 3 books. 2 of them are published. One's coming out in October, and it is unsurprisingly named Fearless, Making the Brave Leap, which is where we're going with this. I do like to curse. I really like it a lot. I'm going to try not to do it because I know it's not Steve's jam. But if I slip up, you're going to have to understand that this is how I show up in the world. But my story, I asked Steve, I said, Steve, what do you want me to talk about? And he said, well, just, do your thing and tell your truth. And my life, I've been an entrepreneur. I learned really quickly out of college that while I worked well with people, I didn't work well for people. And I'm the daughter of entrepreneurs. And I was like, I will figure this out. Let's do this. And I'd had enough experience in the events industry that I opened up an event and wedding planning firm. And I grew it from non-existent to one of Chicago's luxury premier event wedding planning firms. And I was very proud of it. And I got married at 28 and I had a beautiful, perfect baby at 29. And by the time I was 38, I was having my 4th baby and they were amazing. And as every wonderful check box of the American dream and my big, beautiful house and our nice car and as all of those check boxes got checked, I got smaller and smaller and smaller. And I got more and more scared. And I realized at one point that every decision I was making was fear-based. Everything was what will be less scary, what will cause less trauma to other people. It wasn't about me, and it certainly wasn't about being brave. I was just on autopilot. Let's just get through all of it. And there were a couple of reasons that I was in that space. The big and most prominent one, so when we talk about my story, this is the one everyone wants to hear, and I'm totally good with that, is I discovered that I was married to the wrong gender. Now, that's a long story, and I have been a guest on a lot of podcasts. If you go to my website, we can send you some links. We don't get married to get divorced. It didn't matter that I was married to the wrong gender. It didn't matter. There are a lot of reasons why I didn't know before, but I really didn't know until I knew. And then when I figured it out, we tried to stay married because we don't get married to get divorced. That's not the goal. That's not the point, right? It's not like changing your hair color. It wasn't a big deal. I can make it purple next week. It's, this is a big deal. And I had 4 little human hearts that were in the brink here. And I wasn't married to the right person anyway. We were great friends. We were not great partners. We did not complement one another the way that married partners should complement one another. And so the more I tried to make that work, the smaller I got. And the less I could give of myself to the world. And a lot of things shifted in that time space. I cut off almost all of my friends. I'd always been very close to my mother, but over the course of my decade-long marriage and going through this process, I'd pulled away from her. Just, I lived this very solitary life that looked beautiful because I was at, glamorous wedding industry event parties all the time. And it looked wonderful. And I was so broken. And I just very clearly remember the moment it all shifted for me. It was sitting at the breakfast table with my 4 beautiful daughters, feeling like I didn't know how I was going to get up from the chair. And I thought, what would I want for them? What would I tell them to do if they came to me in this situation? What's the advice I would give them? And right then, of course, I knew that I would not say to them, you made your bed, now sleep in it, suck it up, live with that. I would say, you've got to do you. You've got to make the changes that you need to make to live your best life. The world needs you to be you. You have the right to take up space. You have the right to be happy. You have the right to choose joy. You have the right to have a partner that should be yours, right? And it was as if the veil cleared. It was as if the light switch went on, because something about knowing that that's what I would want for them allowed me to want it for me. I knew if I wanted them to do it, I had to do it first. I had to show them how, because they watch us, right? It's not do as I say, not as I do. They were watching me and it mattered. And something about that unleashed this bravery component of my life, it shifted everything. I went from feeling like everything was fear-based to limitless possibility. And I just kind of dove in. I started doing a lot of deep work for myself. I got certified in positive psychology, which included learning an awful lot about gratitude, the first 2 books I've written. And I think the Wheel of Gifts, I don't remember what you call it, Olivia, I'm sorry, but the wheelie thing. We're giving away a copy of Shift Your Focus, which is one of the books that I've written, which is part book, part gratitude journal. And I started going through all of these steps, which years later, I realized is an entire method. And I now call it the Brave method because Brave is my business. And what those things are, Brave is an acronym. It stands for boundaries, reassessment, reframing, resilience, action and accountability, vulnerability, and expand and empower. And the first 4 are what lead to the last one, right? And they don't have to go in order, but it worked for Brave. But setting boundaries, understanding what I wanted for myself and who I wanted to be in the world, asking for what I want, trusting myself to ask for what I want. Who's frozen? I'm frozen? Jules says I'm frozen. No? Okay. All right, just checking. Sorry, I got distracted. We have been having internet issues because I've been leading the Brave Method workshop all week, which we still have 3 more days for. Y'all can come and hang out to another summit when you're done with this one if you want to. Showing up for yourself, asking for what you want, trusting yourself, putting systems in place. It's a lot. It's the whole new book, F Fearless. I'll say it for you like that, Steve. I will. Making the Brave Leap. Breaks down the Brave method. It's got case studies. It's part memoir, part case studies, part get into action. But really what it boils down to is much like everyone here knows that success is self-defined. It has to be self-defined. You can't see somebody else's success and then recreate it because you're not them, you're you. Brave is the same way. It's what I do in the Brave Files podcast is we show that there are a million ways to choose bravely every single day. And when we do that intentionally and we know what we're doing, we start to choose bigger things and we start to have bigger rewards and wins and payoffs. And that is contagious to everyone around us. Our joy, our bravery, our gratitude is contagious, just like our negativity and our sadness and our fear is contagious. Energy is contagious. And it's really up to you how you want to show up in the world. And so when I say F fearless, and I had a good friend the other day who said, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. Does it mean F, yeah, I'm fearless? Like, what does it mean? And I said, no, ditch this concept. This is a societal stereotype of like we have to do it all and be strong and not ask for help and multitask and you should be fearless. No, Steve, I gotta say it. Fuck that. Don't do that. That's not real. It's not human. It's not life. Fear is a natural human emotion. Sometimes it saves our lives. It keeps us from walking out in front of the car on the street, right? It allows us to know if our children are in danger, we can help them. I feel that with you, Steve. Been going through similar things with one of my children. I've been following your journey with my heart. We need fear. Fear is not your enemy. What your enemy is letting fear win. And so the work that I do is helping people understand their fears. Get to know it, folks. What is it you're actually afraid of? My number one guess is that you're not afraid of what you think you're afraid of. You're afraid of something deeper than that. So we peel all of that back. I want you to think about it. What really is it? What do I hear all the time? Well, what if they don't like me anymore? Or what if it doesn't sell? Or what if it's not successful? Or what if I make a mistake? First and foremost, I hope you make so many mistakes. I hope you make so many mistakes that you can't even see straight from the mistakes. But you got to then do the 3 R's: reassessment, reframing, resilience. Then you got to look at it. What were the mistakes? Well, there's always a lesson. If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing. You're not trying. If you stay so in your safe bubble of never doing anything that could risk a failure or a mistake, why are you here? Why are you doing any of it? Right? We want to live big. And fearlessness isn't it. That's for sociopaths and 3-year-olds. It's not, that's not the game, because that's not honest. We're not authentic or vulnerable when we try to be fearless. We're not looking at ourselves. I personally do not subscribe to the whole wash your face and get over it philosophy. I think it's important to experience it, understand what you're afraid of, understand what hurts, get comfortable with the discomfort, and then use that knowledge and leverage it into intentional bravery. Because like I said before, when we choose bravely on purpose with intention, we choose bigger, win bigger, and it's contagious, right? And bravery is self-defined. So for some people, like my child, and perhaps like yours, Steve, just getting up in any capacity, waking up the next day is the bravest thing they can do. For some people, it's climbing mountains and leaving the corporate life to start a hustle. For some people, it's learning how to keep a plant alive. It doesn't matter what your brave is. And you're going to find whole new levels of it. And once you do it, you get cozy with it. I teach this Brave Method workshop about every 4 months. And a lot of the same people come back over and over, because what we know for sure is that the only constant is change. And we're different every time. And the Brave Method isn't about you start at A and exit at Z and you're going to get X, Y, Z results. It's a system to think creatively and strategically, to approach the different parts of your life and your business creatively and strategically in a way that allows you to be in touch with you, to be authentic and vulnerable, to stay in this moment, to acknowledge your truth, and then use that to fuel you into the areas that you want to go. We can't get where we want to go if we don't know where it is. And more importantly than that, if we're not paying attention to where we want to go and how we're going to get there, we may very well end up somewhere like I did that we have no interest in being. And you don't even know how you get there. You're like, wait, what just happened? Right? So constant reassessment, reframing, and getting back up. Resiliency has actually been scientifically proven by amazing psychologist Angela Duckworth to be the #1 key indicator of whether or not someone is successful. And you're all resilient. You're so much more resilient than you think. I get clients all the time that say, oh, well, that's just not my skill set. I'm like, you're still here. You're still showing up. Sorry, I'm going to read this. I get so distracted. Oh, yes. Show your faces, your brave and brilliant faces. What I have did funny. So Heart Song. I love this. That moment, that light bulb moment at the table that I told you all about, led me into like, I just went all in with Brave. Like I was going to say yes to anything that terrified me within reason. I was going to go all in. And I started picking, that was when I first started picking a word of the year. How many of you do a word of the year? Yes. Yeah. I love it. My word of the year this year is expand. And I'm feeling that it's so painful. It's so joyful and wonderful and exciting, and so painful because when things crack and stop working so that you can actually expand, it's like, oh my God, it hurts. But that very first year, brave was my word. And the very first really brave thing I did, I can't even believe I did it. I have a musical theater degree, and a friend of mine in the events industry had an open mic night once a month. And I went and I sang. And not only did I show up and I sing, I like told everybody, come and see me sing. I kind of sucked. I'm really going to be honest. Like I was, like it wasn't terrible, but there were people who were a whole lot better. I have no interest in doing it again, but I did do it. So I did sing my heart song. And it was terrifying, but I was super proud of myself. And you know what was the coolest moment of all of that is that when I did sound check, 2 of my 4 daughters came with me. And one of them said, Mommy, that's really brave, right? They know it, right? And now I hear them because they see what we do. They watch us. I hear them redefine for themselves, especially my oldest daughter who's struggling with some serious mental health issues right now. She'll go up and she'll go, Mama, I did something really brave today. And that's like for her, like I emailed my teacher and I asked a question, and they know it, and they know they're brave. And when we know we're brave, we're braver. When we know that we are more powerful than our fears, which is why we don't want to be fearless, fearless, because we want to know we're more powerful than our fears. One of my kid's sixth grade teacher took an entire group of sixth graders. This was a few years ago, zip lining, and he's afraid of heights. And when I went to pick up the kids from school, I said, Will, if you're afraid of heights, why did you do it? And he said, because it gave me the chance to be brave. I knew I was scared. I also knew I could be brave, and I could show the kids to be brave. That's why we want to face our fears, is it gives us the opportunity to prove that we can show up for ourselves, right? And when we choose to own our rights and our roles and our responsibility in our life and in our community and our business, that empowers us. And I have a really, I think, a fairly unique approach on empowerment. How often do you hear or see, especially in the coaching world, I empower people to X? I call bullshit, because empowerment is an inside job. Nobody empowers you. We can teach you and guide you and coach you and support you, but the empowerment is all you. It's all you showing up for yourself and deciding you are worth showing up for, you are worth taking up space, you are valuable, you matter, and you get to speak. You get to take the stage. So I never say that. And I work with a whole team. I have an amazing team. We call them Team Brave. Of course we do. Copywriters and social media. And they always want to say, we empower people. And I go, red pen it. No, we don't. We coach them. We support them. We guide them. The empowerment is all you. It's an inside job. And so is facing your fears and learning from them and leveraging that fear into intentional bravery. And I had our Brave Method session earlier today was day 5. So we were talking about expansion and empowerment. And I had a current member of my Intentionally Brave Entrepreneurs program show up. And one of the things that I ask, and I can't take credit for it, I have to give credit where credit is due to the fabulous Benjamin Zander. I don't know if y'all know who Benjamin Zander is, but I bow down to his genius. It's the art of possibility. What is possible if? What is possible if? What is possible if we decide that we're going to be okay with making mistakes and having fears and being scared? What is possible if we ask the question we're afraid to ask, or have the conversation we're afraid to have? And so I talk about this a lot. And this particular client has gone all the way in, and I love it. And in the course of the 4 months we've worked together, I do something called dreamscaping, where I want you to envision your most perfect life scenario without ceilings, without barriers. Whatever it is you think you most want, go further than that, go higher than that. Let's picture it in our heads, and then we can start to figure out how to build it. And imagine what is possible if we believe these things can come for us. And so she did this dreamscaping, and in 4 months, everything she wrote on her list is starting to take shape. Every one of them. She had a full-time job. She didn't really want it anymore, but couldn't really afford to quit it. They had to do layoffs. They gave her a huge severance package, and she used that money to do the next thing on her list, which was take the LSATs and go to law school at 44 years old, so that she can start her own business, right? And she said, look, she writes it on her whiteboard, today, what is possible if today? And she even takes it far enough to say, what is possible if I say thank you? What is possible if this person who helped me at the grocery store, I write a letter to their manager and say, this person was so helpful to me at the store? What is possible if we bring community in? What is possible if I get outside of myself? It's magical, right? And the difference is she just shows up. I give these homework sheets when we do the Brave Method workshop, and they look so simple. It's like a sheet with, 10 questions on it. Like, it's a worksheet. That's not true. If you actually do it and you sit with it, you learn so much about yourself. So that's my question for you. What is possible if you choose to learn about yourself, to actually peel back your own layers and see what you actually want for yourself and your life? Who do you want to be in the world? And what would need to shift to make it possible? It's certainly not being fearless, because that's bogus. So what kind of fears are in your way? And what are we actually afraid of? We're often so afraid of success. We're often so afraid that if it goes well, that we may not perform, we may not be able to keep our promises, or that it'll be hard. My partner owns a company called Equality Institute. She does D&I work, and they're rapidly growing, and it's the long game, right? She's been working on a lot of these clients for years, and everything just clicked this year, and it's gangbusters. And it's so amazing. I was like, you need to control where you want to go with this, or this is going to own you. You need to figure out what you want your business to look like in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, because if you don't pause to reassess and reflect, you may not like it. And what she realized was, while she does want to grow, she only wants to grow in certain ways because she doesn't want certain elements of her life to change. I still want to be able to work from home and take vacation and, spend half the summer hanging out with my kid instead of having to work like crazy, right? We want to build the future that we want instead of the one that other people think. And if we don't pay really close attention to how we're building, we could grow somewhere we don't want to be. Fearlessness will do that to you because it means you're not reflecting. It means you're not really paying attention to what you're doing. So we want to get rid of that, right? So I'd love to bring you all in for conversation and dialogue. That's I talked at you for like a whole 28 minutes or something. And so let's have a conversation about what's resonating with you and what your fears are and how we can help you look past them. Limiting voices are a big one. Yeah, let's hear it.
I'm always willing to talk.
All right, Coralie, I love that.
Fear was a big deal with me. I had lots of fears. And when I started to grow and figure things out, I became kind of like a research addict. And I did a lot of research about fear. And finally, one day, it just occurred to me, maybe it's just God tapping on my shoulder for the next learning experience. And since then, I don't fear. I mean,
yeah,
mostly.
Good for you. I lean into that. My work this year has been all around the idea of surrender. I work hard, and I'm very thoughtful and intentional, as I've been saying, about where I want to go. And I do the very best I can. And then I have to, and I don't use the words have to and should very often because I think they suck the life out of us. But in order to thrive, I have to surrender the outcome. I can do everything I can do, but I cannot control the outcome of almost anything.
Right.
So I surrender to the universe and say, I know that it's for my greater good and I will pay attention. A really interesting example of surrender this week. We have had every tech issue that could possibly have been had in a virtual workshop. It's a 9-day event. They haven't been able to hear me. We haven't been able to go live. We've had to move from one platform to the other. It's just been a mess. And I'm like, I don't know if y'all follow Tosha Silver. I love her stuff. Outrageous Openness is a spectacular book. And she talks about signs from the universe. I'm like, this is like a big Vegas neon flashing sign telling me that the way we've been doing this is not the way we should be doing it in the future. But we miss the signs if we're not paying attention. So yeah, not fearing, but also not controlling, not trying to control. You got to show up, you got to do the work, but not trying to control the outcome and knowing that the outcome is there for your greater good. That's a good one, Coralie. I like that mental approach there.
Heather, I was going to ask, could you go over that BRAVE acronym again? I think
Absolutely.
I missed
Yeah. And yes, absolutely. And we are, by next week, I will have it. I could not get it together for you today. We're going to have a BRAVE method, like downloadable workbook for everyone. So if you get on my newsletter list, I'll make sure you get it, I promise. But BRAVE stands for boundaries, reassessment, reframing, and resilience. I call those the 3 R's. They're actually my favorite. It's really where the meat of it is. Action and accountability, because you got to show up and do the work. Nothing works unless you do. And then vulnerability and authenticity, but it doesn't fit with the V. let me talk about why those matter so much. So boundaries, in my opinion, are your key to guilt-free freedom. You have the right to set them, and you have the right to stick to them. As long as they come with clear communication. So a business example that I've got, years ago, I had a client who she works a regular job. She owns her own business, but works a regular job. And her husband is in the events industry. So he works nights and weekends, and they were never seeing each other. She said, what I really want to do is just take Wednesdays off, and then we can hang out because that's his day off. And I said, what is possible if you just tell your clients I'm taking Wednesday off? And she's like, oh, no, they can't. They're not going to like that. I can't do that. And I'm like, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? I love these 3 questions. What's the worst thing that could happen? Well, they could fire me. Well, yeah, that would suck. What's the best thing that could happen? They don't care. Okay. Is it worth the risk? Maybe, because she could change her mind. If they were like, well, if you don't work on Wednesdays, we're going to fire you. She could go, okay, well, fine. I'll work on Wednesdays, right? If she wanted to, or she could realize that they're not the right client for her and she could give them the boot. There's that possibility as well, right? Because not every client is your client. But this was on our very first call. She hadn't even hired me yet. It was an initial consultation. And I said, well, would you commit to just unapologetically sending your clients an email and saying, I just want to let you know moving forward, I'm not going to be working on Wednesdays. I'll get you what I promise you by Tuesday, and we'll get back in touch on Thursday. And she called me the next day and she said, I can't believe this. I said, what happened? She goes, everyone just said, okay, thanks for letting us know. Like, most people don't care as long as they know what to expect from you, right? So boundaries are about thinking about what feels bad, what feels icky. I don't want this anymore. What can I do to change it? Because I stand firmly in the belief that there's always at least one thing we can do to change any situation that we're in, even if the thing that we're changing is our mindset. There's always something you can change about a situation that doesn't feel good. You can reframe it. You can reassess it, right? So boundaries are crucial, but you've got to communicate them really clearly. When I was in the events industry, and it's a rollover. I was working with people getting married. Well, that's their personal life. This was my professional life. They want to talk all night long. They want to talk all weekend long, and that we couldn't do that, right? So we had to set some clear boundaries. So my voicemail still to this day says, you've reached Heather Vickery. If you call after 5 p.m. or on the weekends, I'll get back to you the next business day. Now, what that doesn't mean is that they don't call or that they don't email. They still do. That's fine. That's their boundary. My boundary is I'm not obligated to respond to them. Right? And if people don't like your boundaries, then it's okay. That they knew I clearly communicated and I always followed through. I came back the next business day and got them whatever it was they needed. They were fine. It's okay. Right? So you can't get mad if you say, don't call me after, or I'm not available after hours. If they call, they can call. I just don't answer the phone. Right? Or they can email. I just don't respond. So boundaries are really important. Reassessment, reframing, and resilience. I urge people, and again, I teach, multiple day workshops on this stuff. So I'm trying to zero it in just a little bit here, but I urge people to have reassessment stages on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. Starting with your big picture vision for your life, your business, whatever it is that you want to work on. You can have multiple, it doesn't have to just be one. That's your big thing. Everything flows from there, right? And so annually revisit those. Make sure that what you're building is what you want to be building. Where you're going is where you want to be going. The impact you're making on the world is the impact you want to be making on the world, right? And then quarterly, and this is, if you, with your family, I have clients who use the Brave method with their family in their communities. So not just business owners, but let's use business as an example because it's an easy one to use. If you have a team of people that work with you, quarterly meetings to talk big picture strategy and what's been happening and to really look at those numbers and your outreach and what you're doing. Those are important, right? We want to know what we're doing. We want to have this information so that we can make informed decisions. Knowledge is power. On a monthly basis, then we're looking at short-term goals. I love to talk about the difference between a goal and a commitment. A goal is a thing we think we want to do. We're going to try and work towards that. I'm going to work towards that goal. A commitment is something you are doing. I'm doing this. I'm showing up for this. I'm making this happen, right? And they can be renegotiated. You could say, I'm going to show up for every session for this Sing Your Heart Song Summit, except maybe that doesn't work. So you could go, well, now my commitment is I'm going to show up for whatever I can, and I'm going to watch the replays for the rest. That's okay. You can renegotiate a commitment. You haven't failed. You're not broken. The difference is being honest with yourself. Don't just feel bad about it and then not do anything. Be honest with yourself about it. When we talk about reframing, that's really referring to limiting voices. You know, the voice in your head that says, what does she mean, the voice in your head? That's the voice in the head. That's the one that tells you that no one's going to like you anyway. No one's going to want to hear what you have to say. They're not going to show up. They're not going to buy it, or they're, you know, whatever it is. The limiting voice that most presents itself to me, and my own coach, who I've worked with for years, because I really think it's important that I wouldn't sell something I'm not willing to buy. And coaching is really important. And I have several coaches and I love them. It still comes up all the time. My number one key nasty limiting voice is, Heather, you don't work hard enough. If you just worked hard enough, you'd have all of those big goals achieved by now. And the voice is there because I work from home. I've worked from home a lot longer than the pandemic. I've worked from home my whole adult life. And so my phone and my computer are my whole office, and they're always with me, and I'm right there. And so why wouldn't I work 24/7? Because it's always there. And if I'm not working 24/7, I'm not working hard enough, except I don't want to. And I have really good boundaries, and I only have my kids half the time. And when I'm with my kids at 3:00, I stop working. And they're my focused attention. I don't work on the nights and on the weekends that I have them. If I'd had my kids this weekend, Steve, I would have said no. I would have said, man, let me help you find another speaker, but that can't be me. But they're not with me this weekend. So I get to bend my weekend rules, right? Because boundaries should be flexible. We want to be flexible with our boundaries so that we can have the things that we want to have, and we can be in the places that we want to be, right? And so I have really good boundaries and that limiting voice. But I also know that I can say to that limiting voice, you're not right. How do I know that? So I do an exercise that's called the Truth About You list. I take all my limiting voices, and I have a document. If anybody wants this, email me, heather@vickeryandco.com, or actually don't do that. I mean, you can email me. I would love for you to. But I'm going to have you enter to win a gifted coaching session with me. And if you do that and you mention this, I'll send you this resource for everybody, anybody who wants it. That's the Truth About You list. So list out all of your limiting voices. And then write out what a polar opposite, what a 180 is to that. So the opposite of I don't work hard enough is I do work hard enough. And then cite your evidence. How do I know I work hard enough? Well, I have more than enough. My bills get paid. My children are mostly happy. I keep them in private school. I have a full roster of clients. I have a thriving group membership program that grows every 3 or 4 months when I reopen the doors consistently. I get invited to speak at really cool summits like this. I have a book that's about to come out. I keep adding to the list, right? So you can prove, you can cite it. If you get, this is where you get analytical and you get out of the noise in your head and look at truth. And you can do a 180 to every single one of your limiting voices and cite your evidence. And that evidence becomes your Truth About You list. And so when I used to do it every day. I needed to do it every day. I no longer need to. But when I feel broken, when I feel like the limiting voices are winning, I look at the list and I go, okay, this is me. This is what's true, not this, not those stories, not those voices, right? And that's where the resiliency piece comes in. Having tools and resources and systems to go back and revisit and change your mindset and get creative and come at it from a new approach. The Brave method is all about creative, strategic thinking and problem solving to build a life and a business that you love. Yes, false evidence appearing real. I know it literally says that in my book that I have coming out as well. I also have a way that I break down the word fine. I don't like the word fine. I'm going to use a bad word again and get Steve. If nobody likes the word fine. If it's great, you say great. If you look beautiful, they say you look beautiful. If they say fine, this is passable, right? And I always say fine. When somebody says fine in my head, I hear fucked up, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. Don't tell me I'm fine. Never ever. Because we got a problem. If it's fine, then we got to do better. So B and R. And then A is action and accountability. First of all, just because you can do it all doesn't mean you should do it all. Delegate, delegate, delegate. Find a way to delegate, get creative. I just taught that session in the Brave Method workshop. And I have somebody in the workshop who works in social media, but he's writing a play and he's doing all sorts of cool things. And he's like, well, it's a side hustle. How could I get help? Do a trade with somebody. Get creative to delegate. Lots of ways to delegate and get support and ask for support, right? Lots and lots and lots of ways. People cannot give you what you want and what you need if they don't know what it is. This is where we show up for ourselves. This is where we embrace that fear and get brave and say, what would make this better and stronger? Community is better. We are not designed to be on our own all the time. We are not on an island. We are supposed to be together and lift each other up collectively together, right? So action accountability is about you showing up and doing the work and having good, strong systems and having people to help you with that as well. One of the things that we do in the Intentionally Brave Entrepreneurs program is I partner them with accountability partners in their cohort. And it's literally everybody's favorite thing. It's the most game-changing thing. If y'all don't have accountability partners, go get some. Because you don't, and what they do is they don't placate one another. They call each other on their bullshit really quickly. And they also cheer each other on. Everybody who joins the program gets a flag. This says, yay me. So they learn to celebrate themselves. When things go well, I say, where's your flag? Yay me. So you'll hear. You can always tell my IBE people, if you're in Brave on Purpose and you see somebody respond with a yay you know they're an IBE member, because they're like, I'm dancing for you. I'm celebrating for you. The power of celebration and gratitude it's about momentum. It's about honoring that you have done this thing, whether it's big or small, and growing. Momentum gains momentum. Celebration creates more celebration, more things to celebrate, right? Embracing our fears and showing up bravely, we do more and more of it. The more we do it, which is so exciting. And then the V in the Brave Method is vulnerability. And as Brene Brown says, vulnerability is the birthplace of invention. And it is so true. Braving the Wilderness. Somebody asked me once if I could only leave one book behind for future generations, what book would it be? This one, The Art of Possibility, is a very close second, but Braving the Wilderness by Brene Brown is my number one selection. It's about belonging and finding your space in the world. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful book. And what is so important, and this is my lesson, right? When I decided to live my true self, when I came out, it was a really big deal. I was 38 years old. I had 4 kids. My family didn't know what to do with me. It was just intense. But also what I learned is that I have an entire community of people who love me. They did not all understand. I did not need them all to understand. I only needed them to hold space for me. But everything shifted. Everything shifted when I chose to be me. I got a divorce. I closed my business. I started a new business. I embraced Brave in a really big way. I started checking off dreams that I never even knew I could remotely consider. Being a published author, never in my wildest dreams did I think I would do that. Being a keynote speaker, no idea that was something that was on my trajectory or on my radar. Absolutely not. It was amazing. And everybody responded to it and people saw themselves in me. I get calls, emails, messages, DMs all the time, but especially from older women who go, how do I do that? That's my story. How do I do that? And I said, let's talk. I can help you do that. You can do this if you want to, when you're ready. We all have to do things on our own terms, right? The most remarkable thing is that only one person in my whole life had a problem with me coming out. My stepmom. I stopped existing. I no longer exist to her. Okay, fine. She doesn't make my dad disown me. My dad and I are great. My dad said, I don't understand, but I guess I don't have to. I just have to love you. I said, ding, ding, ding. That's your job, right? I don't need you to understand. But remember I had mentioned that as I was really feeling small, I cut people off, and my mom was a single mom. And we had been so close, and then it was so tense and it was so awful. And it was bad for a couple of months. She was mad and angry and tried to side with my ex, who to his credit said, no, you don't get to do that. You got to side with your kid. You know, he's a good guy. Just wasn't the right guy for me. Wasn't the right gender for me. But once I fully owned who I was and who I wanted to be in the world, that approval that I had been seeking from my mom, where I'd been trying to please her my whole life. And I always said I was the perfect child who could never do anything right. I was always so close, but never there. All of a sudden, she was finally proud of me. And I was doing this thing that she didn't want me to do. It was so weird, but it was as if unleashing my true self, she could finally go, oh, I don't have to make her perfect. She can just be herself. It's wild to watch. And she'll now tell you that the most surprising, impactful thing in her life was me coming out. We learn so much about ourselves when we reflect. We learn so much about ourselves when we choose to be vulnerable and embrace our true selves. And we give the people around us permission to do the same thing. To be brave, to face their fears, to ask for help, to look at their truth, to take up space in the world. It's magic. And so the result of the B, the R, the A, and the V is the E. When we do these things, we expand and empower. And it is not always easy or comfortable. I am in this painful expansion space right now, but I also know it is for the greater good, and I'm going to blow it up. And I decided about 3 months ago that I was going to take my business from where it is right now to a $10 million business. And I looked at, what do I need to do to create that? And it is serious freaking work, y'all. Like, this is no joke. But my motivation for doing it isn't because I want to have a $10 million business. It's because I want to have a kick-ass team of self-empowered people who, by working with me, it changes their life. And then the clients that work with them, it changes their lives. And then their families and their communities, it changes their lives. And I can do that. I can create that for them and have this ripple effect of bravery and courage and empowerment across the globe. I know I can do it. I just got to do the work. I just got to show up and surrender and go, okay, I don't quite know how we're going to get there. I don't quite know, but we're going to build it. And that's why I think you should fuck fearless and decide to embrace bravery, because brave is always greater than fearless. Always. Okay, so do you guys like this? Do you want to know more? Does anybody want to win a gifted coaching session with me? I don't know. If people watch the replays, you get to do it too. Because I cannot give you all one, and I so wish that I could. I'm going to do my own little raffle, so I'm not the Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Names.
Wheel of Names. I am inviting you to go to vickeryandco.com/gift and give me your email address, which will, full knowledge, put you on my newsletter, but it's a good one. You'll like it. I promise. We don't spam. And then tell me what your favorite takeaway was from this session, and I will enter you all to win the one-on-one coaching session with me. And if you write in there with what your favorite takeaway was, that you want to have the Limiting Voices Turnaround Truth About You worksheet, I will send it to you, my gift, 100%. So, yeah.
Would you repeat the where to go again?
Yes, it's Vickery and Co. So it's VickeryandCo.com/gift. I can type it here. I think it's probably on the website. You guys have it places, right? Steve, Olivia?
It's in the chat. I copy and paste in the chat.
And it's also online, right?
It's also online, yes.
Yeah, Face Everything and Rise. I've seen that one too. I like that one too. Yeah, fear is not the enemy, y'all. It's just a thing. It's just a natural human thing. It's what you do with it. I always say it either owns you or empowers you. The choice is yours. You can be brave. It's so fun to be brave. It's so much more fun to live the brave life than the scared one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I love all your smiles. You feeling good? Is everybody lit up a little bit?
Which is amazing because some of us have been doing this for almost 20 hours now. So it's
Holy cow. Well, you look
Right.
happy. Maybe you're just kind of emotionally stoned.
well, that could be. And for Jewel, who's in the UK, it's what? I don't know what. Is it 2:00? It's not 2:00 yet, but it is late.
Wow. Well, thank you for hanging out. I'd be happy to answer questions. I would love for you to listen to the Brave Files podcast. It's not a business podcast. We tell stories with people. I interview people who have stepped out of fear and into bravery in every element, from I'm blind, but I climb mountains, to saving kids with cancer, to fighting mental illness. We run the gamut. I think last week I had a woman who finally got in touch with her psychic gifts and acknowledged that and how that's changing her life and other people's lives, which is really cool. The one this week, this was me getting brave. I have an artist that I just admire, and she has people who follow her, like Hillary Clinton and Amanda Gorman, and you go to her stuff and it's really intimidating. And I just sent her a message and I was like, Gail, I really love your work. Can I interview you on my show? And she's like, yeah, sure.
Wow.
Right. So what was the worst thing that was going to happen? She could have ignored me. That was literally it. Or told me to F off. Whatever. She didn't. She came on. It was so fun. It's such a fun interview. And it went a direction. These interviews always go, they never go exactly where I think they're going to go. So we kind of went into this whole honoring the stillness. She's like, oh, it's so scary when it gets quiet or slow or there isn't work. But if I'm honest with myself, I know that right after still, everything blows up. Everything gets really busy. I just have to sit through the still. So I have to learn to use that time to, to paint my own things and to fill my own bucket, because I know the big bit's coming. Right. And so getting real with that. So anyway, go listen to the show, come hang out, join us in Brave on Purpose, because I'm so glad to know that you like the community, Steve.
Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite places to be at. I'm a member, probably like many people, of 100+ Facebook groups. There are only a handful that I spend any time with. One is my own. Another one is yours, just because I just love what you're doing and who you are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We work really hard at it. I committed when I started it to only be in a place for positive mindset, positive intention, and brave growth. So I never say things like, what do you hate most about being a business owner? I never say that. I might say, what's your biggest challenge? But I'm never negative. I'm a reframer. So I'm really thoughtful about that. So I appreciate that. And we would love to have all of you there. A lot of folks are entrepreneurs, but not everybody. So it's just about living that brave life.
Which is a great life to live. So
thank you.
It is. And one of the things that I learned from your presentation today is just, I think, one, I don't know whether we need to do an interview swap or whatever, but what you do, I love some of the visuals that you create. I call myself a story architect, and I love the whole idea of, and one of the things that I'll talk about regularly is building your content castle. But I love the idea of building it without walls and without ceilings, right? Yes. It's like, set the intentions and let's create the space where it happens. So we the meditation that I led this morning, we created a space within our heart and, painted the walls and different things like that. But it was an open space and there was no size. It was, it could be a tiny home. It could be, the biggest freaking castle in the world. It doesn't really matter. It's your content castle, your heart, it's what you make of it. And like you said earlier about your daughter, sometimes getting up in the morning is the bravest thing you can possibly do. And I've had those moments where it literally, my family left to go to church, and I'm someone who's gone to church most weeks of my life. My family went to church, and it took me literally 2 hours to go the less than 20 feet from my bed to that shower to take a shower. It was like moving through molasses and with 100-pound weights shackled to every inch of my body.
Yeah.
And there are times when that kind of thing happens where, life
Absolutely.
just weighs you down, like literally. And getting up there and saying, okay, I'm going to do this, no matter how hard it is, no matter how awful I feel, I'm going to face this. I'm going to face everything and rise. And that doesn't mean, you live without fear, just like your whole message is about. It's about being brave in face of the fear.
Absolutely.
Rather than letting fear be the one that comes out on top.
Absolutely. And it's that knowledge. And that's really the core of what I want my message to always be is to recognize those things as brave. Because when we recognize that those moments where walking from the bed to the bathroom feels like molasses, and yet we accomplished it, we start to neurologically rewrite. I mean, that's the thing. Thoughts become things, and we manifest it. Our brains don't actually know the difference between negative thoughts and positive thoughts. Like they don't know. It's what we associate with it. And things that feel good, like acknowledging more, and there's some pretty cool science that I've studied behind this. When we feel good about what we've done, we stimulate our parasympathetic nervous system, which makes us feel more good and less stressed and more calm, right? So it all sounds witchy and woo-woo, gratitude and celebration and knowing that you're brave, and it's not. There's real science behind it. And my goal is for people, because every day people, I'm not really brave. And I'm, well, let's tell me about your day. What did we do today? Right? And I'll find the moments. Maybe it's brave to choose the apple instead of the potato chips because your doctor told you if you eat potato chips, it's going to kill you. I don't know, right? Everybody's got them. And if we can find them and pull them out, then we start to recognize that, and it feels good, and it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. So, it's not a bunch of hokey hokey stuff. It's real stuff, and it really works. And I'm here to rewrite it. Let's get brave.
Awesome. That is so beautiful. And reminds me of a conversation I had with a doctor once who said he had a brochure for yoga on the desk. And I'm like, that's cool that you have that there. And he's like, well, the science supports it now. And I'm like, why the heck would you wait for the science to support it? Like, like meditation and yoga is like something that you can try, and there's like no cost to it, and it either works or it doesn't. It's like, why do I need to have 50 years of research in order to prove that something works? So
thank you all for having me. I hope that you'll connect with me outside of this. I'd love to see your names and your faces around my brave spaces. I didn't plan that, but I'm a poet and I didn't even know it.
Awesome.
I appreciate the opportunity, Steve and Olivia. Thank you so much for letting me come in and chat with your group.
It's been so